仕組みなの？
なんやかんやあってそうなるんだろうけど。
Same response I get every time I call tech support. We opened this week with Minamo actually taking Nox's advice from a few episodes back and trying to do cooking videos, which should have been easy in the Alice Sphere as they could provide all of the equipment and I'm assuming all the ingredients she could need. However, I guess backbones weren't in stock as she was a nervous wreck. Fortunately, she did at least have Nachi as a director and hopefully a good editor who could do a lot of cuts. Still, she did eventually make a nice looking cake and just needed to pop in the extra air bubbles.
次がラストです。
Maybe that pound cake could have used a few more to prevent it from bouncing around like that. Thank you. Be here all week. In the end, they just had to cancel the whole production, much to Minamo's massive embarrassment. Nachi, of course, asked why she botched up so badly when normally she's actually a pretty good baker. Of course, it was stage fright, which I think was pretty damn obvious, but she did at least explain what was causing most of her physical issues. To be fair, I think everyone's hearts need a bit of a break this season. Y'all are gonna get heart attacks. Granted, ulcers aren't much better, but yeah, as it turned out, this is also a follow-up to Nachi's little pep talk from the last episode, where she told Minamo that she should try to break out a little more. It was good continuity, plus a nice character moment showing the bonds between these two, even if things weren't exactly working out. The rest of the princesses soon arrived to check in on their friend, leading to a more unique interaction, as while Nachi has been established to be a fan of both Nagase and Kaguri, she is also trying to be Minamo's main waifu, and these two were clearly starting to become competition. Not helping matters was Nachi figuring out that they're all in that same little quote-unquote theoretical unit that Minamo was talking about. Fortunately, Kaguri, ever the diplomat, managed to resolve things.
あなたの言葉、Minamo からよく聞いているわ。
Can we do a polyamory? Was there ever going to be any other outcome? Also, I can't be the only one who thinks this Griffin with the voice of Kuruko isn't giving her thumbs up to this Yuri scenario. But yeah, Grimson here was actually one of the nicest characters in this whole damn show, as they even gave Minamo the okay to try again tomorrow. Quite accommodating considering they basically wasted a whole day worth of filming on this klutz. However, this did end up bringing up the intriguing question of why the Alice Sphere was so accommodating to everyone, or rather to only the under 18 girls, who apparently were only a recent phenomenon to this world, where apparently their internets could somehow connect as this wasn't like the digital world or anything.
そこまで裏設定は語られないから裏設定なんですよ。
ちょっと何言ってるかわからないんです。
I think Utena could best sum up what she's trying to say.
ネタバレやめてもらえますか？
Again, I like that the characters are asking the important questions, meaning that they're at least promising that we'll get some more interesting world building later. Whether or not they'll really follow through with it, and how well it's pulled off, remains to be seen, but just the fact that they actually ask how the internets of this world can connect is promising, as again, details like that I would just chalk up to suspension of disbelief.
Wow, really good reception here.
Anyway, with their schedules freed up, the girls figured they could take in a live recording of a cooking idol named Kaede Sato. Yeah, obviously, Minamo could get some pointers from her, but in truth, she mostly just wanted to watch her for her own entertainment. However, of course, Kaede would end up becoming the victim of the week, as Gita picked her out mostly on a whim. And for a second here, I was scared that Bess would end up being a simp for her, which is the last thing we need as we just got rid of one in the other show. Thankfully though, he was actually simping for the sweets that he might lose out on, which is actually pretty based. Yeah, like most smart anime characters, he claimed that the sugary treats helped with his brain functions. Still doesn't justify how all of them somehow remain as skinny as twigs, but whatever. It's actually a decent bit of characterization for a villain who's mostly just been a stick in the mud, unlike his cohorts, who so far have actually gotten a ton of personality. Anyway, we then cut over to Kaede's cooking show, where she didn't give any actual cooking instructions, and really just danced around while baking. Worst ASMR ever. Also, through just her humming, I could almost immediately tell that she was being voiced by Kana Asumi, which would make her one of the more notable VAs in the show so far, with her extensive filmography, which of course included her playing Sakura in Precure Dream Stars. Yeah, I guess that one Mofurun cupcake woke something up in her, and as we'll see later, it wasn't exactly for the best. Anyway, Gita shrugged and chose to use a bishop this week as his monster and empowered it with Kaede's muse essence. Of course, the princesses immediately wanted to save the day, but first they needed to separate from Nanachi, who of course they didn't want to reveal their secret identities to. And fortunately, Navia again proved to be really competent and managed to lead her away, albeit he needed to work on his deception skills a little more. Zenitsu, get you and your freaky eyes out of this show. But yeah, really funny stuff that also happens to leave the door open for Nachi possibly discovering the princess's secrets later. Speaking of whom, they regrouped and quickly took out the father before the stage boss arrived. They also ran into Gita, who of course, like any villain, just had to brag about his evil doings, and even denounced Kaede's ideas of what constituted as an idol. Just because the Precure botched it up a couple of times doesn't mean that there still isn't a market for it. But yeah, she gave a fairly standard speech about how everyone in the Alisphere deserved to have the freedom to express themselves in any way they wanted, as they were all trying their best. It was fine stuff, and more importantly, it did at least tie in nicely with Minamo's own little conflict this week. Anyway, the bishop was about to launch into its special attack, and thus the princesses had to strike first with their group finisher. And with it, they almost immediately took the little bastard out. Modern Yu-Gi-Oh! In a nutshell. Yeah, again, like the other show, we got a short fight this week, though at least here, it was justified as it was a bit more of a typical monster of the week that's also been established to be a glass cannon. Yeah, Gita probably chose the worst piece to power up. I mean, if anything, it was nothing compared to Kaede when she realized that all of her cupcakes were gone. Okay, that's gotta be the fastest I've ever seen Blonde turn into Whiteheart. Actually, hilariously enough, the show itself made a very direct reference to another one of Kana Asumi's more famous roles in the next episode preview. If this show ever does full-on Kamen Rider references, I will call it the greatest magical girl anime ever. However, after the battle, the princesses were exhausted, as using Triad Force throughout the fight used up their MP a lot quicker than just using their individual songs. Again, I appreciate them explaining details like this, as like how they can't use finishers right off the bat, they would also now need to try to use their individual songs a little more, at least when it came to dealing with the scrubs before using the Triad Force for the bigger enemies. Meanwhile, to apologize for his latest failure, Gita tried to at least bribe Bess with some donuts, which is just hilarious on multiple levels. First, there's just the fact that this villain had to probably get in line and buy that stuff in the human world, and then there was this bit of him trying to explain how the princesses had grown stronger while Bess ate the donuts. It's been even better because I'm pretty sure at least half of that stuff was ad-libbed. However, the episode then ended with the arrival of the final evil general of the series, who I guess was just resting in the back this whole time. This was a bit more of an easygoing, but still really fun episode. Like, don't get me wrong, even when there being a little bit more of a slice of life anime, this does at least still have some intriguing little bits of world building. That said, the stuff that stuck out the most was of course the comedy, which is my personal bread and butter. While I can say for sure, I think this episode had quite a bit of ad-libbing, not just the stuff with the villains at the end. And when they do stuff like that, it usually tells me that this is an episode that they just had fun with, and you can kind of feel it. All of the characters were extremely expressive, which is both entertaining and fleshed them out a little more. It also went well with the major theme of this series, which is the importance of self-expression, which Minamo is still trying to figure out for herself. This episode was likely meant to be her first baby steps towards this, with that hilarious opening segment. I also like how she tried to get inspiration from other creators like Kaede, who was easily one of the most entertaining victims of the week, with her just going full white heart by the end. That said, I am hoping that they'll soon address the goals of the villains of this show. I mean, it's no rush, as they are also building other aspects of the show nicely. It's just that now that their final general is being introduced, I hope we can learn a little bit more about them as a result. Until then, though, I do find them to also be one of the most genuinely funny villain factions I've seen in a while. And overall, this is just a really entertaining episode with little bits of intriguing world building. As someone who's actually made a few cooking videos, my best advice is always to measure your ingredients ahead of time, and also just try to stay calm if at all possible. Thanks for watching, and if you want to discover some new possibilities while watching some of our videos on this channel, could certainly help with that. We've got something coming out almost every day, and chances are good that you'll find something entertaining, depending on your perspective at least. Still, look forward to Comrade Gav tomorrow. Until then, though, for now, my friends, is yeah, thanks, but no thanks.